Around 2 years ago at this time, Take-Two Interactive struck a deal with the NFL that would allow them to finally make NFL games once again. A lot of people still don't know about this because it was 2 years ago and still we have not seen any games. Now everybody got super excited when this news broke because we've been thirsting for not only another 2K football game finally, but just competition in the NFL gaming space in general. Quickly after hearing about this deal, we found out that the deal 2K made with the NFL was to make arcade-style NFL games and not simulation, which EA Sports still exclusively has the rights to. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is EricRayweather, and today I'm going to talk about the upcoming NFL 2K games and what you can expect them to look like, and also the very likely possibility of a 2K simulation football game in the near future. Now, shortly after 2K struck that deal, EA renewed their exclusive simulation license deal with the NFL, which lasts through 2025 and I believe 2026 if financial incentives are met. During these negotiations, 2K was in the mix. They were very interested in getting back in the simulation football space, but the NFL decided to stick with EA Sports due to them already having a long-standing partnership that dates all the way back exclusively to 2005, but also because EA promised a wave of innovation to come with the Madden series. They sold them on a bunch of new things that they were going to be introducing to the series. Now we're going to dive way deeper into all of this, but really quickly let's hear a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Geology. Geology is a men's skincare company, 9-time award winning by the way. They create a simple and effective skincare routine customized just for you, with ingredients that are proven to work and formulated for daily use. Geology skincare helps you fight acne, reduce oiliness, prevent wrinkles, and helps combat dark or puffy under eyes. Now, how does all of this work? It's very simple actually. You go on their site, you take a 30-second diagnostics quiz, you tell them about your skin and your goals, and they will tailor a skin routine specifically for you and ship it right to your door. Now, their products work best as a set, and you'll start with a 30-day trial set. You'll get your face wash, you'll get your Vital morning cream, which is my favorite. It kind of just makes you feel refreshed when you wake up. Then, of course, you're going to get your night cream as well. And last but not least, one of my favorites, the Nourishing Eye Cream, which has been big for me because I've definitely had some dark under eyes most of my life, just something I've dealt with, and this has definitely significantly helped me since I've started using it. And after your trial period, you can continue with 90-day supplies of the products you love most. You can subscribe and save, or just go a la carte. You're in total control. Having a skincare routine is really important, and Geology has definitely gotten me right. If you want to try this out for yourself, you can simply go to geology.com or click the link below in the description. Now, EA Sports has done some things since then. They promised a wave of innovation, and they have tried to do some new things like adding the yard game mode, for example, but nothing that has really felt like true innovation so far. Meanwhile, fans are still waiting for the new 2K game that was supposed to release originally in 2021, but got pushed back until 2022. But with a lot of things unfolding since then, it gives us both a good idea of what 2K is cooking up and also what could potentially come in the near future in regards to the simulation license possibly opening up. Now, a lot of people continue to ask what the new NFL 2K game is going to be like. A lot of people are still confused on the whole deal, even 2 years later. I've made videos about it in the past, but I figured it was a good time to revisit the topic since we should be getting a lot of official news on the game very soon, within the next month or two. And if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on so that you're updated every step of the way on the latest developments. The biggest thing we know is that 2K will be releasing multiple NFL games, and even though they can only be arcade games, there's a lot of potential things that they can do that would be interesting and exciting for NFL football gamers. And like I alluded to earlier, there's still potential for the simulation license to open up soon, but more on that later. In terms of the current arcade style games which are going to come out first, what exactly will those games look like? What even is an arcade style game? A lot of people constantly ask me. Think more like NFL Street or NFL Blitz rather than Madden, which is simulation style and attempts to replicate what you see on Sundays in the NFL, even if they miss the mark on a number of things at times. With arcade style, you have something that is typically not 11-on-11 football. It's usually more like 7-on-7. It will usually have player models that are a bit more over the top. The gameplay will be a little more wild with bigger hits, players jumping higher, and things like that. Now, coincidentally enough, Madden has been a lot like that lately since they've incorporated abilities and X factors into their game, but I digress. With multiple NFL games coming from 2K, most people by now have figured out that there's a few different approaches they're going to take. There will certainly be a very easy pick up and play kid-friendly game, maybe even a mobile game, but also a game that can blur the lines between arcade and simulation a bit. They've already said that their new NFL games will have the same depth that we've come to know and love from 2K over the years, and that games would be social experiences, meaning they will certainly have a focus on multiplayer, potentially even open world like NBA 2K's My Park, for example. In terms of the easy pick up and play game, we almost certainly will see something similar to NBA Playgrounds and WWE Battlegrounds. Those are the other two big sports games that they have. They have their NBA 2K series, they have their WWE 2K series. They've taken both of those and they've created the pick up and play playgrounds / battlegrounds version of the game, which is super arcade. It's over the top. It's similar to stuff like NBA Jam back in the day, if you can remember that. With these two games being recent developments by 2K, it would make sense to do an NFL version of this, but this would be more of a side dish and not the main course. Now, they've pushed back the initial release already from 2021 to 2022, and that's just not something I could see happening for a game like this. They know that their return to NFL gaming has to be a big bang, and NFL Playgrounds just wouldn't be that. The bigger game at play here would be something more along the lines of My Park from NBA 2K, except an NFL version of this. Something like the old NFL Street games, but a modern version where you can play offline seasons / career mode, but also take your player online into an open world with other players. You could have different fields to play at, different events, and the customization would be endless. Now, interestingly enough, Madden did introduce the yard game mode last year, shortly after the deal with 2K and the NFL was struck. And while the yard is not a fully realized version of an open world My Park, it is similar in the fact that there is a lot of customization. There is a more arcade style of gameplay here. You get 6-on-6 rather than 11-on-11. There's different fields you can play at. It's just not open world. The customization still could be a lot better, and there's a lot more that they could do with it. But it's interesting that EA introduced this mode shortly after it had been announced that 2K was coming back to NFL gaming to make arcade style games, and immediately everybody looked at My Park and said, well, it would make so much sense for them to do an NFL version of this. So you can tell that Madden was like, you know what, we need to kind of beat them to the punch a little bit and incorporate this into our game, and they've continued to build upon it even though it still has a ways to go. But the fact that EA has done that should tell you everything you need to know about where 2K is looking to go with their new games. Now, the offline version of this NFL My Park style of game could still be very deep as well. Maybe not necessarily having a franchise mode, but it would definitely have a season mode that gives you more depth than the arcade NFL games of old. I think 2K knows what the market has been missing. Arcade games are needed for sure, but depth is needed just as badly. The attempts EA has made as of late to make their game deeper hasn't really made the impact with fans that they had hoped for. So if 2K ever wants a shot to get their hands back on the simulation NFL football license, they're gonna have to knock these arcade games out of the park, no pun intended. Now, a lot of fans are saying, why can't they just make another all-pro football game like they did back in 2007? The problem there is, that game was simulation football. It just didn't use real teams or current players. But the gameplay was still simulation, and that's just not something they can currently do with the NFL license. But there's been another very interesting development as of late that could potentially open up the NFL license once again. Now, if 2K really delivers with these games, which I'm sure they will, and if people support them heavily, which I know they will, that alone will send a message to the NFL that it would be beneficial to everybody to have more NFL games in the market. But the interesting thing here is what recently happened with EA Sports and FIFA. They had the exclusive FIFA license for many years, the same way they had the NFL license, but they're about to lose it because of ongoing disputes over licensing price and other things. EA feels that they can carry on without the FIFA license, and although it's a bit different than the NFL license, seeing as FIFA gamers wouldn't notice too much of a difference like NFL gamers would without an NFL license, it still shows that EA feels that they don't need that license to still succeed. If another company were to pay for that FIFA license, EA feels that their hold on soccer gaming is just too big and that the gap is too wide for anybody else to play catch up. Now, if EA feels that way about their soccer game, which is their biggest sports game by far, it's their flagship game, it's much bigger than Madden, and that game actually has a decent competitor in PES, then what do you think they feel about Madden, which has had no real competitors since 2004? Even in 2007, when 2K dropped All-Pro Football 2K8, it didn't even put a dent in Madden sales. In order for 2K to catch up to Madden, it would take years no matter how good their initial product would be. It would take them time to build the game off top, which would take a while, and once released, you would still have an uphill battle of winning over a generation of football fans that don't know anything else but Madden. Sure, the old heads would be all over 2K, and even some of the new kids who play NBA 2K, but it would still take some time to get a bigger piece of the market share. And with microtransactions being the main source of revenue for sports games these days, EA probably doesn't mind losing a big piece of the pie, because the amount of money that they would be saving by not having to pay for the exclusive rights anymore would likely outweigh the revenue that they would lose to 2K. So they would still actually come out better this way because they'd be paying way less for the license, but they wouldn't be losing that same amount to 2K in microtransactions and game sales. So with all that being said, you should expect a couple of new NFL games from 2K this year potentially. An NFL Street type of game that will be filled with depth, customization, and a great online experience, and also likely a Playgrounds type of game that literally anybody can pick up and play. But in the near future, many signs point to 2K getting back into the simulation space with the NFL. They've been vocal about wanting to do it. EA has shown that they aren't as worried about competition thanks to the piles of cash microtransactions provide, and the NFL is more open than ever to having more games on the market. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it informative. Check out some of these other videos right here on the screen if you liked this one, and I will see you guys next time.